Hello everyone, welcome to this webinar today, COVID-19 Survival Panel. My name is Peter Towers, I'm the Managing Director of ESS BIZTOOLS, and I really do welcome you all to this webinar, either watching it live with us today or watching the recording later on. I'm joined today by two guest presenters, Andrew Geddes, Business Development Coach, who was well known to many accountants all around Australia, had experience over the last 40 years in trying to contribute to the development of accountants from a management point of view. And Andrew has recently finished 9 years as chairman of a Australian public company, a top 200 company that started as a small veterinary clinic in Townsville some years ago and grew to be a top 200 company. So Andrew will have some interesting insights to pass on to you today. We're also joined by Jordan Lowry. Jordan's the Managing Director of Blackstone Business Services. He's an expert in workplace culture, employee behaviours, human resources, workplace health and safety, and dealing with Fair Work Australia. So welcome to Andrew and Jordan, and they will be joining you very shortly to give their overviews of the ways that accountants, bookkeepers, and business advisors can assist in guiding your clients through this process with the COVID problem. If you've got any questions, can you please type them into your computer and we'll look at them later on in chat and I'll ask the questions. We are recording this webinar and we will be sending to each attendee and to a lot of other people a link to the recording so that you can watch it again if you wish at your leisure, and hopefully you'll be able to pass it on to your colleagues in your organisations. I want to set the scene by giving you an update, a news break, if you like, on what's happened in COVID-19 coronavirus in the last week or so. And gee, things have happened fast, haven't they? We've got the JobKeeper payment scheme was passed in Parliament on Wednesday, the 8th of April, record time. Another record was it was passed unanimously. Pity a few other things couldn't be passed like that in Canberra, isn't it? So the legislation's been passed and the first payment is to be made in the first week of May. The commercial tenants rental waivers have also been announced. Now this has all been rather low key up until now. There's now starting to be some comments in the media, mainly by landlords, although I noticed in today's press that the federal court has made an interesting decision, which we might refer to later on relative to the commercial tenants rental waivers. They have deferred the rent being paid by a company until the crisis is over. So that's interesting. The major point, though, that I think accountants need to be very much aware of, the only way your client can utilise the commercial tenants rental waiver is if they have qualified for the JobKeeper payment scheme. That means their turnover has to be under $50 million and they have to have had a reduction in turnover by 30% when compared to a similar period in 2019. The boosting cash flow for employers, which will enable any employer to access a minimum of $20,000, a maximum of $100,000 in the period from April through to October this year, is operational. There does not need to be an application lodged for it. Your clients are going to be assessed as to their eligibility for that based on the information contained in their business activity statements. The apprentice trainee subsidies in operation. An employer can gain a subsidy of up to $21,000 based on employing apprentices and trainees, and that's $21,000 per apprentice or trainee. It's calculated on 50% of their wages up to $21,000 payment for a 9-month period. The coronavirus supplement is operational, and that's of some benefit for businesses that trade as sole traders or self-employed persons, and that then enables them to be able to get access to their superannuation funds if they wish to draw down $10,000 before 30th of June this year, or a further $10,000 in the 3-month period, 1 July to 30 September. As I mentioned before, the JobKeeper payment scheme is now in operational, so employers can access $1,500 per fortnight for employees who were engaged by the business at the 1st of March, permanents and part-time staff. If your clients are continuing to employ those people, that payment can be made. And if they are casuals who were working on a casual arrangement with your client for the last 12 months prior to 1 March, they can also be eligible for that. And the coronavirus SME guarantee schemes in operation. This relates to the funding that the Reserve Bank has made available to banks, $90 billion at a very low interest rate to the banks. The government is going to guarantee 50% of the borrowings made by small, medium enterprises, turnovers up to $50 million, for 3-year loans with no repayments necessary in the first 6 months at a very low interest rate. And no security needs to be offered according to the information supplied by the Reserve Bank. So that is in operation. The Commonwealth Banks announced that they've already lent over $150 million in that. And we've got the instant asset write-off. For those of your clients who have got the cash flow to be able to spend that money, they can write off up to $150,000 in an individual purchase, and they can purchase as many items as they wish to. There's also been some changes announced for research and development. Normally, businesses have to have registered by the 30th of April with Oz Industry. That's now been extended to the 30th of September. And research and development applications for advanced and overseas findings, normally for the year ended 30th of June 2020, those applications have to be lodged by June 2020. As long as the company has supplied some basic information, it can then supply the rest of the information by the 30th of September. So that's the update on what's been happening with the government. And ESS BIZTOOLS, we've finalised our survival plan for COVID-19, which is available, and it's part of the subscription package which we have developed, which we're calling Survival in Difficult Times product package. So that's the overview of the news as I see it. And what I want to do now is introduce you to Andrew Geddes. Andrew's the former chairman of Green Cross, and is a well-known consultant to the Australian accounting industry. We've got Jordan Lowry on screen at present. Andrew, are you ready to come on?
I am, Peter, I'm here.
Okay, if you quick.
I can see you and me on my screen.
Yeah, no, we've got you there now. So, Andrew, over to you to make your comments on how you think accountants should be responding to this crisis with their clients. Thank you.
Okay, my PowerPoints should have come up now, Peter, for you.
They're there, thank you. Yeah.
Good. Leadership in the time of the COVID-19 lockdown. What I want to do this morning very briefly before we open it up for questions is just talk about what we've been doing with the firms I'm currently working with. I'm the external chairman of engineering companies, surveying companies, accounting, financial services firms, and a couple of IT startups. So about a dozen firms involved in different industries. The first thing that we've done in I'm just trying to, there we are. In looking at what's happened to us with the COVID and the lockdown, we've taken 3 values into our thinking. And the first one is we've got to treat all of our team members in an exemplary manner. We want to retain them and have them feeling trusted and ready with us once we begin to move out of this lockdown. So in all of these companies, the response has been quite different, but we've said, let's try and keep as many of our team as we can, and let's treat them very well. Lots more communication sessions, daily and weekly updates from the managing director, involving them in our decision making. Very important. The second thing is we want to lift our customer experience, not just service. That's a narrow definition. All of the touch points that our customers use to interact with us, we're looking to improve that. So we want to involve our staff in lifting that. Hence, it's important to treat the team well and then look at how do we look after our customers more effectively. And in this less busy time, if our sales have dropped a little, in some companies they're actually up, in others they've dropped substantially, what can we do to improve our processes and share our learnings? So we've used that as a theme to drive our focus. Now, the first thing we've done is to say we've got to get our own house in order. So in some of the accounting firms, we've simply said, well, how much cash have we got? And what are we invoicing and collecting weekly? And what's that saying to us? As a result, we've looked at what the government can do to help us. And Peter's just outlined all of the sorts of things that can be done. In some of my accounting firms, we've actually applied for many of those forms of assistance. Can the bank help? Can the landlord help? Can our ICT companies help? So the first step is we've got our own house in order. And I mean, for example, one of my engineering firms wants to keep its highly sophisticated and specialized engineers. We've got enough cash reserves to pay them until the end of December, and we're not putting anyone off because we'd rather run it just break even or reduce the team members' involvement to 4 days a week if we have to, so that we retain that highly experienced team. So let's get our own situation sorted, and then let's take this out, the accounting firms, to our clients. And the important approach to this is probably item 5. We've got to develop an opportunities mindset in going to our clients, be it if we're not visiting them because of lockdown, ringing them up and talking to them on teleconferences. For the first few weeks, a couple of my accounting firms were running around like hoods, like chooks with their heads cut off, wondering about what's going to happen with our billings and our cash flow collections, and how many clients have gone under because of the shutdown in hospitality and travel and education sectors particularly. However, having drawn breath and sorted our own firm, we then start to do some work with clients. For example, I had conversations this morning with one of my managing directors, and he said, I've just obtained one of those government loans, 250 grand, with no security over 3 years, in order to help one of my farmers restock, because we've had rain and there's now feed in the pastures. And the farmer reckons he'll double his money in 6 months. So there's a client who's very happy with us. We had to put material together to go to the bank, the local bank managers saying the quality of the presentation and the cash flow projections was such that we're happy to loan you this money. We did it also with a hotelier who said, I've got money in reserve, and based on the structure of that client, he had a number of different entities. We were able to access a loan like that to do a redevelopment while part of the hotel is shut. We had a butcher who lost revenue, a third of revenue, because of losing a hotel client. And sorry, Peter, I've just had I'm just trying to get, can you still see me? Because I've had Kapersky just drop in. Let me just see if I can get back to where I was. Sorry, I had a request from my security to upgrade. Am I back again now?
Yes.
Very good. So developing an opportunities mindset. In talking with clients, we had a butcher shop who lost 30% of revenue. What am I going to do? We said, well, let's apply for the JobKeeper grant. And he said, oh, I've just heard the butcher down the road has gone broke. We might pick up that revenue. Perhaps we better not apply. Well, in reading it closely, we thought, no, we should apply because we don't know if this is going to happen yet. And we've got JobKeeper applications that have gone in. Again, he said, I had a landscaper ring me up and say, oh, woe is me. I haven't got any work in my pipeline. And so my managing director said, well, why don't you drive around, and where you see water coming out of people's gardens and into the gutter, because it's in a country area where water's valuable, why don't you put your business card in their letterbox and make an offer? This landscape is now busy revising domestic watering systems so they use less water, and he used to do a lot of subcontract work for builders. Well, he's finding that this is more profitable work. So my point is this. If you talk to your clients and ask them questions of where they're at and get a good understanding of their situation, and you begin to think laterally, there are plenty of opportunities out there. Some of our business clients are now developing business in new areas where in the past they'd been too busy to even think it through. And we're now going, let's follow that opportunity. Some of our clients in the IT online business area are growing rapidly, and we're helping them scale up their businesses. So my point is this, that yes, it's an unforeseen situation we find ourselves in, but you need to approach it client by client, matter by matter. Talk to your clients, think about what costs can be reduced or eliminated. Can we set up a senior leadership team and identify opportunities? And let's now start driving the implementation of those actions. And this is the business advisory approach that the accounting firms I'm working with are taking out to their clients. We're then doing the same internally within these firms. So we're having a daily stand-up, which is a connection via Zoom or one of these apps that allow you to do it, looking at which clients have we spoken to yesterday, what came out of it, and can we learn from it? And by sharing that around, we've got not only the partners in the firm, but also the senior team members with client lists, all of them looking at how have we helped clients? Oh, I've got a client that's like that. I'll give them a call. This is this opportunities mindset that I think is very important. And that's what leadership in a difficult time, it's leadership of your own team, and then it's leadership of your advisory contacts with your clients. So we're now setting up lists and going, we need to be talking to all our business clients. We need to be doing it weekly. We need to spread it through the partners and the senior staff, and we're making sure that happens. So in reviewing that and thinking about our own resilience, because there are some clients we can't help, and there are some tough, I'm helping a firm that I think's going to be put into insolvency shortly, and it's not easy. So I think you've got to start being aware of your colleagues and your senior people as advisors, looking at the hard areas, the hard jobs. How are we, with your people, how are you feeling? Are we keeping fit and living healthily? Have people got someone to talk to when it all feels a bit much? And when you go home, are you having honest discussions about yourself with whomever you live? So we've also decided that part of treating our team better, Peter, in this difficult time is we've got to lift our leadership in this area of keeping the back of all of our colleagues. So how are you going? What's happening? What's tough? What are the wins? How can I help you? What do I need in terms of support and discussing with others? So just a pragmatic list of things. Get our own firm in order first and look at what cash we've got and how our cash flows are going. And then get out there with our clients and realise that each client is different. There are opportunities in most situations. We just need to start thinking laterally and talking about that in a scheduled meeting regularly with our senior advisors, and we can work our way through it. So that's my experience of the last couple of weeks, spending a lot of time on teleconferences doing just that.
Yes,
So,
I'm sure you have, Andrew. So you, that's all you wish to say
yes.
at this stage?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And I'm sure everyone enjoyed that. And if you've got any questions arising out of listening to Andrew, then can you please send them through to us and we'll get back to them a little bit later. I now want to introduce you to Jordan Lowry. Jordan's the Managing Director of Blackstone Business Services. He's a HR, Workplace Health and Safety, Fair Work Australia expert. And Jordan's going to talk to you about the human resources workplace culture problems that SMEs are encountering because of COVID-19. How are you, Jordan?
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Peter, and some valuable insights from Andrew there as well. So I look forward to sharing this with you today. So good day, everyone. Today, I do want to touch on the things that Peter have said, and actually some of the things that Andrew has said, talking about where you actually speak with, during a regular meeting with your advisors. There are so many similarities that we can draw from that today, because Andrew's speaking on the topics of leadership there, and those valuable insights. This is where actually, as business owners, when you're talking to your client base, who are those business owners, where they really need to step up in these unprecedented times. Like we are, if I regurgitate the conversations we've had with a lot of business owners over the last few weeks, it is that we are in uncharted waters, where we're having to go back to precedents when it comes to things such as work health safety, when it comes to employee management. And I'll give you an example of that. What happens if an employee refuses to come to work because they're fearful of contracting COVID-19, or potentially putting someone at risk who may be at home? Usually if an employee refuses to attend a shift and there is no logical reason, and we've done everything as far as reasonably practicable to provide a safe work environment, we could take there's a high chance we could take disciplinary action against that employee. But it's happening in probably 1 in 10 businesses. We have an employee that says, you know what, I just don't want to come to work. And the employer says, well, we've put these things in place. Can we maybe put you in a room where you've got even less contact with other persons whilst you do your duties? And the employee is still refusing to do that. It puts us in that huge grey area, or those uncharted waters, to say, is their request reasonable? Because we don't know their situation at home. Are they potentially protecting children or an elderly person that they're a carer for? So it has put some employers in some really, really tough predicaments. And this comes down to when we talk about culture in a business. Do we make tough decisions and upset the culture? Do we communicate with our senior advisors, whether that be, and as business owners, one of the first people we turn to are either our bookkeeper or our accountant. As we get information as an employer, are we passing that down? Because Andrew, you mentioned something before, and that was communication. And communication is, when it comes to employees and employers and your culture, is absolutely imperative. Because one thing that we've found over time, and it's proven itself, is where there's a blank and they don't know the information, 9 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10, they will fill that blank with the worst case scenario. And what that leads to is whether it be gossip or bickering or whatever it may be in the business, and it can be detrimental to your overall goal and where you want to be. So it's quite scary times, and COVID has now, what that's done is it has actually forced employers to consider things such as work from home. Okay, so if your employees can perform duties and they're working from home, it was quite funny to see that shift. Initially, employers were against it. They said, you know what, this is a terrible idea. So a lot of employers utilize tools such as desk time, where they could actually monitor their employees' performance. They could monitor the work that was getting done. And a week later, we had employers calling saying our productivity is up 80%. It's amazing. And then what happened is for the first couple of weeks, that's been good, but now they're starting to see like the psychosocial hazards and the flow over effect from employees actually having low support and from isolated work, and saying, well, we actually need to put initiatives in place to keep our employees engaged. Andrew mentioned that from a leadership point of view as well. Like, are they, just like you meet with that, you're doing your senior management team in these tough times, or your senior leadership team, or your senior advisors, as a business owner for that support, your employees are going to need that as well. They need those regular touch points. Are we looking at things such as when you talk to your clients, are you telling your clients, yes, they're working from home, but are you giving them the opportunity to speak to each other via a Zoom meeting? Are you dropping in for one-on-ones with your staff? Because these are some things they really need to think about. And if you, as an advisor to that business, can give them that support, that can be the difference between a culture that gets stronger in these turbulent times, and we go back into the workforce and everyone is an even tighter knit community than before we entered these times, or we can come back to a storm, and that's what we don't want. I want to share with you today. I've had the honour to do a lot of training with the Australian Air Force, and I think this is, we wouldn't say it's a downtime for a business, but I think it's a lot of time we can actually spend at the moment. I think as business owners, we do this. And when we think about our clients, we do this as well. We ponder about what's the best approach for them. And in working with the Air Force, I spent a lot of time with the commanding officer, and they actually run something they call PBED. And so PBED, and it talks about how they structure a mission. And I think when we advise our clients and we talk about their business, I really want you to, I like to tie it back to how they do that and the lessons we can learn. So what they do is, so PBED stands for plan, brief, execute, and debrief. So what they do is when they plan a mission, they always have a contingency in place. So if it's a 3-jet mission, they'll send 4 F-18 Hornets or Lockheed Martin. So they'll send 4 jets to do the mission. That way, if there's a problem with one of their jet's engines or there's a fuel leak, they can continue on mission. They don't have to go back to base and start it all again. And from there, they brief. And this is probably one of the most important things. And it comes back to communication as well. Everyone knowing the part that they play. So what they do is they brief. So the pilot will brief the co-pilot, and they question. There's a lot of cross-referencing to say, do you understand your role? And what it goes even to the extent when they go to check out their gear with the gear clerk will say to the pilot, so pilot, what's your role in this? Co-pilot, what's your role in this? And they repeat it back to each other so that they make sure that there is, that at each point, everyone knows exactly the part they play in the success moving forward. So what happens when they go and they execute the mission, they come back and then they debrief and they go through it. When we look at this, how did it go well? And do you know what went well? What didn't go so good? And how can we improve on that next time? So when you advise your staff, I want you to think of, or your clients, when it comes to their staff, that's exactly what we do. Like, this is a time where we look at the current situation we're in and we plan around it, okay? But the briefing is one of the most important things when it comes to HR and culture and work health safety. Are we bringing our staff into that loop, okay? Talking about the part that they play, what this looks like for them. As we get information about the job keeper, are we communicating that? And when we speak to our accountants, are we then communicating that to the staff to say, okay, this is what it means for you. This is what it looks like. And then we execute. You know, let's get through the next 2, 3 months, 6 months, and then debrief. The debrief is really important. Under normal operating business circumstances, that would refer to an appraisal. So over the last 3 months, how do you think you've done well? How did you achieve this? Where could you potentially do better? And what can we do to obviously improve that performance and support you? The debrief is going to be important in this instance, not just from an appraisal point of view, but as we're working from home, how can we make this better? Okay. Where do you feel like there's areas of support? Do you feel like you're isolated there? And what can we do to make sure that we get the best out of you moving forward into the future? So there's so many things there. On that and working from home, I'll share this now because it's quite a it's that a lot of people have missed. You've got to realize from a work health safety point of view that working from home, those employees, and we'll provide this, Peter, through yourself, we'll get you out a checklist. Their workplace or where they work from home is actually considered a workplace. As an employer, you've got a duty of care to make sure that that workplace is safe. For example, the seat that they're in, and understanding what things would maybe an office ergonomics policy. An employer usually, I know we've got to maintain limited contact now as much as possible, but if an employee works from home, the process under the Work Health Safety Act is actually to make sure that we go in and we check that that environment is safe from any potential hazards and risk, and we manage that moving forward. So there's a policy that we can give you access to for your clients, which we'll send through to Peter, and that checklist. But anyone who's got someone working from home, it's a really, really important thing to dot that I and cross that T from a legislative point of view and a compliance point of view. So Peter, I've banged on a lot about all of that, but I think they're probably the hot topics at the moment. Any questions? I'm here for that as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Jordan. And what I want to do now is just reintroduce you again to Andrew. Andrew, do you want to, we haven't got any questions. I don't know why, but we haven't. And do you want to now talk more about the leadership role that accountants can provide to their clients?
Sure. Peter, we could talk about how people are pricing their work at the moment. That's
that was I sat in on a webinar the other day, and you hear some bad stories, I suppose, hard luck stories, where one accountant was describing that for 3 days, he'd literally spent 6 to 7 hours a day taking phone calls from clients. Some of the clients were literally crying to him and claiming, they had no money and what were they going to do. So accountants at the coalface are facing a lot of these sorts of issues, and I'm sure you've probably heard of some of those. So.
Yes. Well, there are clients who've had to shut their doors, be it a restaurant, cafe, motel, travel business of some sort, and hence they are very difficult conversations. And in some cases, if they don't have cash reserves and they're living hand to mouth, it's a matter of, yes, there is not anything that can be done. Particularly if you look at what government help is available, and it's not enough. Otherwise, it's then looking at, well, what can we do? It's what are the client needs. For example, some of the examples I gave you in helping a farmer obtain a loan to restock a property, the farmer was concerned about what will this cost? And the answer was to prepare the spreadsheets and the documentation and to take it to the bank and make sure the bank was happy with it. We estimated a job production cost of 2,000. We thought, well, that's the price we'll charge. It had a slight profit margin built into it. It didn't have any value pricing extra margins on it. And you could imagine that the farmer initially thought that was a lot of money, and we went, well, it's going to take us several hours to prepare the spreadsheet. Having discussed it with you for an hour and created notes, we'll turn that into a dot point business plan, and then we'll represent you at the bank. So the effort that we put in means that we need to be paid 2,000. Now we're going to get you a loan for 250,000.
Yep.
Therefore, are you prepared to invest 2,000 in our assistance to obtain that outcome? So we still have a duty to look after the accounting firm and our own employees, and to make sure our own business remains profitable. The work we're doing is honest. It has integrity. It needs to be paid for. So part of an opportunity mindset is, let's talk with the clients openly about their needs, the risks they're facing, their feelings around the downsides. What happens if you don't get this? And in the end, yes, we'll help you, but you need to be prepared to invest this and ask for the business. We need to be resilient in that way. Unfortunately, there are some situations where clients use it as an opportunity to try and say, well, you know, what you do doesn't have value, I want a third off. Well, that's the decision that you have to take. We've decided that we will not discount our fees because we've regarded them as being fair. We believe that they are good value. And we've said to our clients, well, we will help you in whatever way we can. We'll look at what your concerns are, what we're trying to achieve with you, and we'll say, here's the fee up front. It's a fixed fee. Here's our estimate, and here's the outcome we're trying to help you achieve. So it is a difficult time, but I think our first responsibility is making sure that our accountancy firms survive. Some clients, we've got to say, sorry, if you haven't got any money, we can't help you. Some firms have said, this client's been with us for a long time, we'll back them, we'll actually do this and leave the fee and we'll recover it later. I guess that's a client by client, matter by matter assessment. Now, the firms that I've been involved with, Peter, have tended to have cash reserves. We pay dividends after we've kept enough money to pay salaries for 3 months, salaries and overheads, and after we've got enough money put aside for long service leave, professional indemnity insurance, and some of those big ticket items. So if you've got a cash reserve, you might be prepared to back a client. But again, it's a client by client, matter by matter decision. But to me, the first responsibility is making sure you retain a viable business so that you can help those clients that are in a situation that can be helped, can pay for it, firstly, or you might back a certain percentage. And there are some you'll have to say, sorry, the reality in this unprecedented time is there are some businesses that are not going to survive because they've been living hand to mouth. The government assistance is not enough, and to put them into a managed receivership is the right thing to do.
Yep.
And that's when I suggested at the end that some of these conversations are hard, therefore we need to talk amongst ourselves in our accounting firms and look at the successful ways we've helped clients, the hard conversations, and remain calm and make sure we're doing the right things to remain resilient. We are leaders of our own people in our firms, but also for our clients within our communities. So yes, it is difficult at times. That's why you need some help. So have you got someone you got an old mate you can ring, have a virtual beer with, like I do with you, Pete? G'day, how you going? What's happening? What's giving you the shits? You know, how you coping? Do you want to belt someone? Tell me about it. And, you know, a problem shared is a problem halved, is an old piece of philosophy.
That's right. Andrew, there's a lot of accountants practicing in Australia as sole practitioners. When we look at this leadership question, are they reaching out enough, do you think, to have those conversations or have that virtual beer or wine? Or
well, the handful that I know and speak with regularly are, some of them are involved in support or discussion groups, and they meet quarterly and talk about surely you've been through uni with a mate. You can pick up the phone and say, hey, Betty, what's happening? And, you know, would you have a moment? I guess I've had conversations with clients who've become friends over the last 40 years, quite a few of those conversations in the last 6 weeks. People reaching out, me ringing them saying, I need someone to talk to. I'm going nuts. I feel a bit pressured, and others ringing me. So I think it's important that particularly sole practitioners do that. Your senior staff need to be involved in that as well. And I think we need to, as I said earlier, bring our partners into this and talk to them about, and they probably need this help too. You know, how are you going? What are you finding tough? What not? What might we do? Do you need a break? Do you need to go for a walk? Shall I look after the kids for a bit? Yes, I think these the supportive approach is very, very important. Don't sit at home alone feeling pressured, not wondering what to do. As I said, some of the senior members of teams in some of my accounting firms were a little shell-shocked when some of their clients went broke and had to close down, particularly in the early shutdown in the hospitality game. So each firm's different in terms of its clients and what industry sectors they're involved in. I've got a couple of firms that are quite exposed to tourism, hospitality, travel, that sector. And well, I live on the Sunshine Coast, so I'm surrounded by that industry,
Right.
that and retirement. So it can be very difficult. And hence I suggested we need to look at our own firms and make the decisions there. In some that have been hard hit, we've had to reduce directors' salaries. We've had to reduce staff salaries and or days worked. We've had to reduce some of the overseas contracting resource we had, and then go, well, now we need to bunker down and focus on talking to the clients that remain and making sure we help them through. So we get our own house in order, make the decisions that are necessary, then we start working with clients. But don't forget, during this, you don't have to be a hero on your own. So in other words,
Yeah.
Pete, if it all gets too much, you pick the phone up and you say, get us, what are you doing? Let's have a glass of wine and a chat.
Yeah, well said.
Reach out, don't be too proud.
Andrew, just to finish that then, or look at just taking a little bit further, the Prime Minister in yesterday's press conference started talking about perhaps some of these restrictions being lifted in 4 weeks' time. It's a little earlier than what I'd been expecting.
Yes.
I suspect there's a lot of SMEs and some accounting firms that are really sitting back a bit, still shell-shocked. That was a bit of interesting news. What should they be doing? If someone's been feeling a bit dismal about all this and doesn't really know which way to turn, what should they be doing now based on what Mr. Morrison had to say yesterday?
Well, Peter, I just think you've got to talk to, if your personal feelings, if you're feeling down, you've got to reach out and to your family or friends or even help such as the Blue organisation, etc., or your GP. Don't sit there freaking out alone. Yes, the businesses, the lockdown will be opened up slowly but surely. It'll be locked down for another month, is what the Prime Minister has said. They're very conscious of the need to rebuild the economy. They've established various committees to look at what's going to happen post-COVID, and we will bring back onshore more manufacturing to increase our security. And you've got the likes of Liveris, ex-CEO of Dow Chemical, who was born in Darwin, involved in that committee with ex-ACTU high-up officials, etc. So they've got some really good brains and people looking at where are the areas that we need to help and stimulate. It's a fine line, Peter, between protecting the health of the broad population and then reopening the economy so that jobs and lives are not wrecked. And it's not, I don't envy them their task. It's a very difficult time. They will start opening it up slowly but surely in selective areas, is the word that I'm getting out of not only the Prime Minister's pronouncements, but some of the committees that are occurring in Canberra that I know people involved and am talking to them behind the scenes because of my involvement as external chairman of a dozen different companies. So it will open up slowly but surely. I don't know when. They don't want to do it yet because they don't want a second outbreak.
No.
The Prime Minister said we're going to stay locked up for a month. That's going to be continuously reviewed as we move forward, and it will change. It may be shorter or longer. They'll begin to open up certain areas. So going back to your question, there's the aspect of running your business and being a leader of it, and don't try and do it on your own. Involve your senior people and reach out to colleagues, friends, or professional help. Do the same with your family. And, you know, I find it very helpful to, I get an online version of one of the national newspapers and start my day by reading that. I usually have a stand-up check-in once a week with all my managing directors. So I've got a couple of those happening every day. And by being involved with colleagues, and at night I sit down and have a fine wine with my wife and say, hey, darling, how are you hanging? Are you all right? And she says, well, what about you? I go, well, I'm doing the best I can. And there are times when it's tough.
Yeah.
And there are, you know, and I've had enough and I'm down because we've made difficult decisions. And so it's not a time to be alone. It's not a time to be a hero by yourself. I think it's, we've just got to be very sensible and reach out. Then the phone rings and it's an old mate saying, I've been thinking of you. How are you?
Yeah,
and
that's
that
great.
help?
Yep.
Mm.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Andrew. We might just move on to Jordan, and then we'll see if anyone's come in with any questions.
Okay.
So I'll just re-maneuver here if I can. Jordan, do you want to rejoin us just to...
Yep, got you there.
And the area I'd like you to look at this time, if you could, is, you know, accountants that are out there, this whole activity is beyond what a lot of them normally do, which is taxation, returns, preparing annual accounts. Clients are now going to them. You can listen to what Andrew is saying. They're asking them a whole range of broader questions. Your expertise is in this human resources area. Accountants are going to be asked about all sorts of activities to do with human resources, Fair Work Australia, motivation, getting the best out of their employees. What's your advice to accountants who are performing this broader Chief Financial Officer role?
It's a really good question, Peter, because earlier you would have heard me mention as well that in these tough times, we go to those trusted advisors. And for a business owner, those people that they look to usually are their accountant, whether they've got to make someone redundant or there's an issue about termination and that final pay. The accountant gets a phone call, hey, I've got to do this. And usually the accountant will say, do you know what, that's not our field of expertise, but we'll put you in touch with someone, for example, ourselves, who would assist and guide them through that process. And it's very, I think it's very important that they do that because it also brings value. So if an accountant has access to teams of professionals like Andrew in that leadership space, and if they've got people who they can refer to, such as ourselves in that HR and that work health safety space, the accountant puts themselves or positions themselves in, they solidify that advisory role for their client, which is very important. So they may not have to give the advice personally, but it allows them to continue to bring added value, not just doing up your BAS, doing your tax. And I think this is COVID has really, really shown that this is a time where we can all prove our worth to our clients, because without clients, we don't get paid. And I think that's really, really important. So based on that, that's one thing that we've really been trying to focus on, is saying that, do you know what, if a client has a question, or if they're struggling with understanding their rights as an employer, because there are genuine businesses, or there are businesses who genuinely have needed to make people redundant. The JobKeeper, because the process was actually initiated before COVID hit. So at those times, that's where we would really position ourselves to say, if you've got a client, and these assist partnerships, if you've got a client who does need assistance, call us, let us walk you through that process, or your client through that process, or we'll do it via yourself, so that you continue to have that relationship with your client. We don't even need to be in the picture, but it brings value. And when the time comes and they do need someone, and you were ready to make that introduction, that's where someone like ourselves would position perfectly to say, let's, you know, we both value the relationship with this client. So I think as an accountant or a business advisory company, having someone that understands this space and are experts in it is integral, and it's in your client's best interest as well. Andrew mentioned before, there's been some things there as well that through these times, probably the most common things have been getting variations to existing contracts, people changing whether there be a reduction in pay or a reduction in hours, and documenting that the correct way. So a lot of people are, and I've spoke to a lot of businesses who haven't been given the right advice, or they have spoken they might have spoken to their bookkeeper, not their accountant, and they've just said, oh yeah, you can do that. But the thing is, if you don't document it correctly, that can be detrimental moving forward. So Pete, that's what we've actually done, and we offer those services going forward. We strategically partner. We call it an assist partnership with any accountants or bookkeepers. If you do have a client that has a question, you can contact us directly. You'll actually have my mobile, so you can call me directly. We'll walk you through that process. We'll give you any letters that are needed, and I think it builds it builds a lot of rapport for us, for yourself, because ideally what we try and do is we talk to clients about having strong legal foundations. I think a lot of people now are realizing that this is the perfect time to have things such as your contracts, your policies and procedures in order, because you're outlining three things in there: your expectations, your processes, and your consequences. And if you don't have those things clearly outlined, it's very, very hard to hold employees accountable when it comes to performance expectations or behavioral or conduct expectations. I'll just briefly use an analogy that we talk about with that. It's as parents, and with parents having a lot of children home at the moment, they're probably remembering this a lot more, but a curfew. When the children were allowed to go out, or as teenagers, our parents did that. They put in place three things: expectation, process, and consequence. So the expectation would be, I need you home at 10 o'clock. The process is, if you can't be home at 10 o'clock and John or Sarah's mum can't get you home, you let us know, so that when you walk in the door at 10:30, we know exactly we expected it. But the consequence is, you walk in that door at 10:30 or 11 and I've told you to be home at 10, this is what you can expect. If there was nothing in place and we hadn't communicated that to the teenager, what's the first thing that they're going to say? Whoa, I didn't know. And employees are exactly the same. If you don't communicate the expectations, processes, and consequences, first thing that they say is, well, I didn't know that was the case. And as an employer, no matter how serious it is, you can be on the back foot very, very quickly. So that's one thing. If you can take away, or a question for your clientele is exactly that. In this downtime, or based on the experiences in the last 4 or 5 weeks, has it been made evident to you that you don't have expectations, processes, and consequences outlined in your business? Is it time to actually look at those legal foundations and those structures, so that when we go back into the workforce, it's all there? We've already done it. Let's do the consulting. Let's put that in place now. Pricing for that too isn't expensive. A lot of people think that's going to be a HR and workforce safety system's going to be bigger than Ben-Hur. It's probably about 6 hours worth of consultation in there. And at the moment, based on pricing in these times as well, we think it's priced well. But for your clients, we do that for $2,500 ex-GST, including all the consulting hours and a month of advice included in that. So that could be any situation they're dealing with currently. So keep that number in mind, and we're here to help. So any questions, I welcome them. So thanks for that, Peter.
Thank you very much, Jordan. And I'll just swing back now. Just bring the screens back up. We don't seem to have any questions. I don't know why, but we don't seem to have any. Anyone that is watching, especially if you're watching on the Facebook live feed that we have running today, and you would have some questions, please send them through to us, and I will forward them on to Andrew and Jordan, and we will communicate those back to you, and we'll place the question and the answers onto the ESS BIZTOOLS website, where you'll be able to have a look at it. So I might ask, Andrew, would you want to like to do just like a final wrap up from your point of view on the message that you would give accountants at this stage as to how they should be guiding their clients through these challenges and getting them ready for the startups again, hopefully starting in 4 weeks' time?
Yes, it's about having an opportunity mindset and looking at a situation and sharing that situation with your colleagues so that we can come up with solutions for clients, and realizing what you're doing is valuable. And it's if you're assisting a client, they need to invest in their future. So let's have an opportunities mindset for our team, for our clients, and for ourselves.
Yeah, well said, Andrew.
Retain your dignity and your belief in yourself.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. And
Thanks,
we
Pete.
might just see if Jordan wants to make a final comment. I'll just switch back, Jordan. So if you would like to just do
Perfect.
this.
I'm back again. Great. So I think it's the takeaway for clients today is when it comes to business owners and their culture, for me, it's communication. Remember that communication is key. Clarity, transparency, and also each employee understanding the part that they play moving forward, what their current role is, what that looks like. And as things are subject to change, making sure that the change management you implement in the business is done correctly and effectively. And people like Andrew are the best ones to give you that sort of guidance. So, and that has a flow-on effect to the space that we play in, which is the HR and the culture. So I hope everyone stays healthy and well out there. Let's hope that these restrictions allow us all to get back to the way we do business as quite soon. And I think what this has taught us with things like Zoom meetings is it's going to change the way we do business moving forward, no matter what. So I think it's going to teach us a lot more efficiencies. But in the interim, love to hear from anyone, and stay safe. Thank you.
Thanks, Jordan.
Thanks, Jordan. I just want to finish off, if I can. We have our next one of these webinars on next Friday, the 24th of April at 12 noon. We're going to offer these every week, probably through to the end of September, whereby we're going to introduce a series of speakers who have got expertise with accountancy firms. So our speakers next week include Amanda Gascoigne. Amanda's a chartered accountant who these days coaches and consults to accountancy practice owners all over Australia who want to embrace a contemporary practice way of doing things that are a win-win for all themselves, their families, their teams, and their clients. So we're looking forward to having Amanda talk to you. And the other presenter is Paul Barnaby, who many of you will know. Paul's an ex-senior partner of a firm in Wellington, New Zealand, but he's lived in Australia for the last 15 years or so. He's the Australasian manager for Plan Guru. He is fanatical about budgets, cash flows, and projected balance sheets. And that's the software that's produced by Plan Guru. So they're our speakers in the next series of this webinar, and I'll be hosting them. If you wish to register for that webinar, can you please go to www.essbiztools.com.au/webinars, and we will talk to you then. On behalf of Andrew and Jordan and myself, thank you for your participation or for viewing this webinar at a time that might be a bit more convenient for you, because we're going to be sending links to this webinar out to thousands of accountants around Australia. And if you do have any subsequent comments, can you please send an email to us, and I'll give you that address in a moment, and I will pass it on where appropriate to Andrew and Jordan. You can find out more information about the ESS BizTools Survival in Difficult Times product package by going to our website, www.essbiztools, or you can contact me, Peter at essbiztools.com.au, or telephone me on 1-800-232-088. You have heard some very interesting comments today by Andrew and Jordan. My final message to you is stay safe. This crisis is going to end. I think Mr. Morrison made some very interesting comments yesterday. There is definitely light at the end of the tunnel, and it's time for accountants to be really working with your clients, showing them the leadership and showing them the services you can offer. If you can't offer all the services, please contact us and at ESS BizTools, and we'll be happy to refer you to people like Andrew Geddes and Jordan Lowry and others, Amanda Gascoigne, Paul Barnaby, who can come in to undertake a specialist assignment if you need assistance in that area for some of your clients. And in conclusion, have a great day. Goodbye.